candidates. Independents around the country have generally broken in past elections pretty heavily for the Republican. Democrats rarely carry independent voters, but in Iowa today and in other states, we're seeing the independents splitting right down the middle, and they are the crucial swing votes, and they're the ones who are making this election so close.
Are we beginning to get much of a whiff of the Nader factor tonight?
Not yet. Not really yet. The Nader, because the states, Nader is not getting that many votes in most of the states we've already called. We're waiting to see Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the West Coast states. That's where he can make a difference. And let me add something. There was a movement among Nader voters to wait until late at night to vote. For a simple reason. They said they want to find out if Al Gore needs their votes. So some of them may be waiting up in Oregon and Washington and California and elsewhere to decide how to vote to see whether or not Al Gore needs their vote or whether they can safely vote for Al Gore.
Just one point.
Polls are open.
We have called Minnesota for Gore, however.
We have called Minnesota.
Yeah, but and that was a state where we thought Nader might play big. But Wisconsin, Iowa, Washington, and Oregon to come, we still don't know.
Interesting, more than a little calculation on the part of some Nader voters. We learned in the last couple of weeks or so there have been websites set up for Nader voters in states where they were worried that their vote for Ralph Nader might hurt Al Gore, might tip the state to George W. Bush. They set up a swapping system where they would communicate with a voter in a state that was going to most definitely go either all for Gore or all for Bush. And they swapped so that they could cast, the other voter would cast a vote for Ralph Nader to help him get to that 5% to get the Green Party.
My guess is that if we had called the race already for one of the two presidential candidates, either Gore or Bush, the Nader vote in Oregon and Washington and California would swell. Yeah. But we haven't called it.
And CNN earlier today, Judy, had on in interviews some of these Nader voters and some of the people who swap votes. It was very interesting listening to the rationales, too.
We have a call to make in the state of New Hampshire. CNN declares that Texas Governor George W. Bush will take the 4 electoral votes. Every vote counts, folks. The 4 electoral votes in the state of New Hampshire go to the governor of Texas. So let's look at his total now. He is over the 200 mark at 201 electoral votes. Those are the states in red. Al Gore, 167, the states in blue, and an awful lot of states still in yellow that we are not able to call one way or another. But New Hampshire, a state that Al Gore and George W. Bush both wanted to win, both would have liked to have had.
He lost it in the winter. He won it in the fall.
And McCain had a lot to do with both of those eventualities. New Hampshire looks like a little red, lonely outpost up there in the solid blue Gore Northeast, and McCain had a great deal to do with that. It fears that he helped deliver
Here's another, I'm going to interrupt. We've got another call to make. The state of Missouri, the Show Me State, goes for George W. Bush, 11 electoral votes in his corner. It's racking up. If it was 202, this makes it 213 for George W. Bush. It's getting interestinger and interestinger, as they said in Alice in Wonderland.
Well, psychologically, Governor Bush has to feel good cracking the
212, I misspoke.
And
these are pictures from Austin, Texas, of the Bush crowd reacting to the calls, both Missouri and New Hampshire falling in to the George W. Bush column.
this reminds me of Rocky, you know, or one of those boxing movies where in one round one guy's down and there's a 9 count, he staggers to his feet and then he knocks the other guy down. What makes this interesting is that, well, it's been interesting since we started, but all of the notions of how to look at this campaign in which we said, look, we can't tell you what states it's going to come down to. It may come down to a handful of small states that really never seem to matter in the fight for the presidency. Look, Nevada is out. New Hampshire's electoral votes could make a key difference. Arizona is still out. I think Colorado is still out. New Mexico is still out. These are states that generally have very little to do with the outcome of a presidential campaign that are fought in the big battleground states. But the way this electoral map is adding up, one of those tiny states that's in play could wind up deciding the presidency.
Larry King is standing by in Washington. He has some guests. Larry?
We do, Bernie. We start with William Bennett, the co-director of Empower America. He was President Reagan's chairman of the National Endowment for the Humanities and Secretary of Education, as well as the drug czar for President Bush. Your mood has changed since you arrived here tonight. What do you make of this night, Bill?
Well, last half hour has been good. I think the next half hour is Bush country, too. We'll see. I got a comment, though, Larry. You know, I'm not a conservative press basher. A lot of conservatives are. But this really shouldn't happen. You should not call a state and then have to take it back. You're not the only guys who did it. NBC did it. I think other people did, too. But there have been all these tributes to democracy and all these explanations that we may have to be here late this evening or into tomorrow. Well, let's stay late this evening or into tomorrow. You don't call a state like Florida, as big and critical as Florida, and then take it back off the board. This affects how people think. It takes the air out of people's enthusiasm. I mean, I'm glad the mistake is corrected, but Bill Schneider was saying we're going to be very cautious. Well, should have been very cautious and not called it in the first place. That's really an interference in democracy.
The same on the other side. Do you think if Bush is close on one, they should not call it?
I mean, they should obviously observe whatever you know, structures and rules they've got. But of course, this isn't a point about liberal bias I'm making. This is a point about procedures and following it right and counting right, you know, doing your math right or doing your homework. But I mean, this should not happen to either side. I don't know if it's the eagerness for ratings, but you know, we've already been told that we might expect a long night into tomorrow.
And you
Fine, democracy can survive that. We can do that. The American people are grown up enough. You don't have to tell us something that you're not really reasonably sure of.
What do you make of this swing through the night, one way back and forth?
Well, I mean, it's it's a very close contest. Obviously, the turnout's interesting. There's some pieces here I don't understand. I have heard that there was a large you know, absentee ballot participation in Florida and in other states. I think there was a big one in Texas when Governor Bush ran for governor. Your other guests can talk about that. I may be right. I may be wrong about that. But what's the turnout of the Christian right? We've heard a lot about labor and African Americans. That's surely in big numbers. Where's the religious right? I'm curious about that. Where are the Catholics? They were a big target. I'd like to know the answer to that. And the suburbs seem to be pretty interestingly split. Before we had this retraction of Florida, you know, one had to comment. You know, as a loyal Republican, one still had to comment. Hey, 3 Republican governors, you know, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Florida. But now, obviously, that's in question, and Governor Ridge is calling Governor Bush, saying Pennsylvania's still in play. So it's a long night, and again, we can, you know, if we can stay up for Johnny and David and other ridiculous things, we can sure stay up for democracy. Don't do this to us, guys.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for your thoughts. William Bennett, the co-director of Empower America. We understand there's another call coming in a moment. As soon as we get it, we'll go right to it. Ann Riches, you have deflated in the last half hour.
Well, actually, I just feel like I have begun my day because I've gotten lectured by Bill Bennett, which, you know, you don't feel like you can go a day without it.
Was, don't jump to.
Sure. And I know why. Because what the Republicans do is they make a concerted effort, and the Bush people did this in my race, and so I know they have done it in this race. I told everybody, watch out for it. They make a concerted effort to register absentee voting for military. And
still a vote, though.
Absolutely, nothing wrong with it. Just smart as it can be, because it's a sleeper vote. You never see it. They make a real effort to get them registered.
Hold on, Ann. Let's go to Judy Woodruff. We are calling another state. Judy?
Larry, we do have a state to call. The state of West Virginia. CNN Calls is in the corner for George W. Bush. The Texas governor takes West Virginia's 5 electoral votes. This is based not only on interviews with voters as they left the polling places, but also on our analysis of key sample precincts throughout the state. Now let's look again at the totals on the electoral map. 270 needed to win at this hour. It's 10:12 Eastern Time. We are giving George W. Bush 217 electoral votes. Those states in red, we're giving Al Gore 167. The states in blue, the ones we are not able to call yet, are the states in yellow. So the map is ever changing. Larry, back to you.
West Virginia, a state that should never be lost by the Democrats. Yeah. What do you make of it?
I thought we would lose West Virginia.
So what do you need to do now to win this?
So what we have to do now to win it, and I think the one that's hurt us the worst for my news is New Hampshire. We have to win Washington now. We have to win Oregon now. We've got Minnesota, win California, Hawaii, and then we have to pick up another small state like Arizona, New Mexico.
Florida back?
Of course we have to have Florida back.
We understand Donna Brazil, who is the wheel behind the cog of the Gore campaign, is with us now. Donna, are you there?
Yes, sir. Good evening. How are you?
What do you make of
also
these?
say good evening to Governor Riches as well.
Hey, Donna, good job, girl.
What do you make of these
Thank you,
shifting tides, Donna?
Well, you know, the tide is turning, and I still believe that this election night is still young. There are many states that are still out there voting. We have people who are standing in lines in St. Louis and Colorado and other places. And, you know, there are many small states that are still out there, some more absentee ballots. Governor Riches talked about the military. Well, you know, there are seniors. There are a lot of union households that voted absentee, African Americans. I believe we had a great turnout today. So this election night is still young. So,
but a half hour ago, frankly,
got a couple more hours, sir.
Weren't you feeling much better a half hour ago before they took Florida from the win column to the maybe column, and then suddenly losing New Hampshire and West Virginia?
Well, I still feel that Florida is, I still believe that Florida is in the Gore column. You know, we started off the day in Florida. The Vice President was there last night. Senator Lieberman joined us in Tampa. We had a tremendous turnout in Florida, all across the state. So I don't believe Florida should be taken out of the Democratic column. I think it's premature, and we'll see what happens over the next couple of hours in the state of Florida. But remember, we still have a number of states that are voting. The polls are still open in a couple of states, and we're going to take many of those last remaining states tonight.
Has Ralph Nader, and he's due to be with us in this hour, has he hurt you tonight?
I haven't heard a lot about Ralph Nader today. I've talked to radio stations across the country, to our campaign workers, and we didn't see a lot of force out there. It was a lot of hype, but not a lot of votes. So I believe that Vice President Al Gore is doing a great job tonight. We're bringing home a lot of Republicans and Democrats and independents alike voting for Al Gore, and as well as Green voters.
So are you, Donna, predicting that you will pull this out?
I'm still predicting a victory tonight. It'll be a surprise to some of you who are, you know, calling it the shots right now, but I still believe the American people are speaking, they're voting with their feet, and they're standing in line waiting to cast their ballot, to have their voice heard, and Al Gore will still be the winner tonight.
Thank you, Donna. And Ann Riches will be back with us at midnight when we're joined once again by the rest of our panel, Senator Baker and Bob Woodward. We also expect to hear from Ralph Nader in this hour. I'm Larry King. Now back to Election Central down in Atlanta, and here's Judy.
All right, Larry, thanks a lot. And it is a heart-stopping night of an election. We are going to take a break now, but when we come back, we do expect, as Larry said, to hear from Ralph Nader shortly. We also will talk to Tom Daschle, who's a Democratic leader in the United States Senate. Much, much more. Stay with us.
Coverage of Election 2000 is brought to you by America's Pharmaceutical Companies and Ditech.com. For expanded coverage, log on to CNN.com. America's Pharmaceutical Companies and Ditech.com. Home loan savings direct from the lender.